Time to wrap up the AFC. This is my summer series part 4 with the AFC West, Denver, Kansas City, the Chargers, and the Raiders. Hope you've watched the other 3 and found something useful in them. If you have, please let others know. I'd love to grow the channel. I love to interact regarding football, not just during the season, but before the season when the prep work goes. So whether you're interested as a fan, a handicapper, and so on, hopefully the next few slides in the next 25 to 30 minutes will be helpful to you as we get ready for the NFL season now, just a couple of months away. We start with Denver in the in the AFC West. Again, the way I present it is in this kind of PowerPoint format, so you get a glimpse as to what are some of the key metrics I'm looking at. Are they sustainable? Are they repeatable? What can we learn from them? What can we look forward to for the next season? Denver's had a tremendous 2-year run in the sack ratio. I mean, look at that, 53, 84 more sacks that they've obtained rather than allowed. And that's really caused the Sean Payton what can you say? They have really been outstanding over the last 2 years, and that's why they're in every game. And if you beat them, you generally just beat them close because of the way they play defense and the way they protect offensively. Number 2, pass defense. You're completing under 58% of passes against Denver, which means it's tough to get first downs. Obviously, we know they have some all-pros in the secondary, and they have some tremendous pass rushers. So most of the guys are coming back, as we see. Free agency, a couple of rotational defensive linemen are out, might slightly affect the way they defend the run. And game-breaking wide receiver, at least they hope game-breaking wide receiver, Waddle from Miami is in, cost them a first-round draft pick, part of their draft grade. But maybe he helps stretch the field. The coaching staff, no changes, which is a rarity in the NFL these days. I always like to look at the schedule, peaks and valleys and so on. We've noted some scheduling bumps in the road over the last 3 episodes and some good scheduling over the last 3 episodes. We'll do the same in this one. Games 1 to 6 are tough, but the middle of the stretch from 7 to 14, not really bad, not much for Denver to complain about. That's pretty good for a first place team. The draft was kind of average, although you have to count Waddle in it. They did pick up a guy I like, Cage Casey, the offensive tackle. Denver rotates its tight ends continuously during games. You'll see 4, maybe even 5 tight ends see action in any one particular Denver game. Snap by snap, they're almost rotating tight ends. And I mentioned during the draft season that Sean Payton was obsessed with getting more tight ends. He actually had 12 tight ends in the building, either with private workouts and visits or general workouts and visits. And he drafted 2 of them. And he did a better job than the AFC South did in drafting tight ends. He got Justin Joly in the 5th round with probably a mid to late 3rd round grade. And Dallin Bentley had some highlight moments at Utah, probably a 5th to 6th round. So I think they did well in the tight end market, and it fits their culture anyway to do a 2 tight end setup or a rotational tight end setup. An average draft, probably Jonah Coleman complicates the deep running back room, but a lot of rotation is used by Sean Payton, and so he needs team depth. Unanswered questions. Denver still has to win by more margin. I mentioned that they're never out of games, but they don't seem to put away teams as well. One of the things that I hope we'll see in the 2026 season, especially if you're a fan of Denver, is that they try to stretch the field a little bit more. With their quarterback now having an extra year of experience, they're going to trust him with all of the playbook. And with Waddle running routes, maybe they'll go deeper. Waddle and Cortland Sutton on the other side and all those tight ends. There's a real chance to spread out the offense a little bit more. Little bit of a problem if they have the injury bug because they haven't had deep drafts over the years. We know Sean Payton loves to trade draft picks. They traded the 1st round this year, but it's not uncommon that they trade a couple of times. and have maybe 6, maybe 7 players in a draft class. So I love their starting 22, but watch for injuries, and because I think there'll be a drop off. Getting back to the AFC title game has to be the team's goal. Winning the AFC West, the very contentious AFC West, because the Chargers are good. And of course, the Chiefs, even though they fell back last year, they're good as well. Winning the AFC West would be fantastic for them. Win total is 9.5, showing how contentious the entire AFC is with their first place schedule and so on. It's hard to get wins. It's hard to find anybody that's going to go 12-5 this year. I'm not sure if my power rating is a little bit low. Again, my power rating average is about 25.7. Clearly an above average team, but I haven't put them in the Buffalo-Baltimore range of talent yet. I might be a little low. We'll see where I actually hone in September. The metrics, the point totals, the close games suggest regression, just like Kansas City had last year. However, my win grid that I put out, where I look at each particular game in the season, and I did it early this year in anticipation of this series, the win grid says plus 220 isn't bad for divisional odds. And if they take more chances, if they stay out of injury, Bo Nix, one thing I would like to say is watch Bo Nix. Make sure he plays. I'd like to see him play in August. Remember, he missed the title game last year against New England. I want to see, even if he takes 20 snaps in preseason, I want it to be more than 0. I don't want there to be any doubt that he's ready to go at the beginning of the year. So that's my take on Denver. They're clearly in the mix. And according to my win grid, plus 220 isn't bad for winning the division. Kansas City slumped back this past year. And one of the reasons is their sack ratio was unusually poor. 35 defensive sacks. Again, I've said all along, Chris Jones needs a running mate. He is still, despite his age, capable of 10 plus defensive sacks, but not if they key on double team and triple team him. Kansas City needs to find that extra pass rusher or two to free him up. Unfortunately for KC, Mahomes, there's only about 3 quarterbacks in the league, maybe 4, Aaron Rodgers in his prime, but Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Pat Mahomes, those are the guys that could overcome pass defenses that are over about 63, 62%. Mahomes, unfortunately, has to do it almost year after year because typically Kansas City has this 65, 66 pass D. I'd love to see it go down, but we may not see it go down, as you see in free agency on this PowerPoint slide. 3 defensive backs, 3 starters are out, including 2 going to the Rams, 1 in a trade. Good news, Eric Bieniemy is back. He really was creative in terms of what he, and obviously Andy Reid was a great part of it as well, diversifying the offense. Each year, from 2024, when Mahomes didn't stretch the field at all, to last year where they started to stretch the field when they had Rice on the field after his suspensions were all over and injuries too. This year, I think they're going to stretch the field even more. And of course, with running back Walker, now they have potentially tremendous run-pass balance. So I think you're going to see more points scored in Kansas City. I like the early bye. I like the solid early pacing. Now listen to this. I wrote this down. Weeks 12 through 17, they're going to face quarterbacks that complete nearly, I'd say, 2 out of every 3 passes at a minimum. Week 12, on the road, Josh Allen. Week 13, on the road, Matthew Stafford. Week 14, on the road, Joe Burrow. Thanks, new defense. I don't know what their great defensive coordinator is going to come up with then. Maybe they'll have some reps in and they'll have some chemistry. That's just 12, 13, and 14. They come home week 15 to face the MVP runner-up, Drake May, and his 65, 66%. Then they stay at home to face the very accurate Brock Purdy of San Francisco. And week 17, for the 6th week in a row, a tremendously accurate quarterback with a good scheme. And that's Herbert of the LA Chargers. And that's a road game. 6 tough games in a row against quarterbacks. That's going to be some kind of murderer's row. We'll see how they navigate that. The draft was decent. They filled most of their needs. They did not fill right tackle. It's going to be start off right tackle either by committee or one of their in-house players. But we have to watch how the right tackle, I'm going to be watching it. I'll take some notes during August and early September, what happens on the right side of the offensive line, because that's a sore spot. I highlighted the edge rusher, Mason Thomas. Can he be that sack person that helps free Chris Jones? That's something I'm going to chart as well. How are the sacks doing? What's going on with KC's front four pass rush? Things that you need to write about beforehand so that you're not surprised and you anticipate what's going to happen. This is how I prepare for the season, and I suggest it for others as well. Peter Woods is a good run stopper in the middle. Obviously, they got the number one cornerback in the draft. They traded up to make sure they got him ahead of New Orleans, who was interested. Emmett Johnson, now that they have Walker, kind of a confusing pick, but Emmett Johnson is a good pass catcher. He had a lot of success at Nebraska catching passes, and then they added a second cornerback. Not a bad draft. It's a decent draft, which should help them move back up in the race. Unanswered questions. Let's see what that sack ratio looks like as we go through the season. And I'm curious how Walker will be utilized, because Kansas City has kind of been under Mahomes a pass first team. They've had running back by committee the last couple of years, but maybe Walker takes hold of the position. Maybe like last year, he stays injury free. And what a weapon to use when you're trying to kill clock at the end of the game and move the chains. That's something Kansas City would relish. Their team goal has to be to win the AFC West. For me, whether or not they win the AFC West, they need to be formidable in the playoffs. They need to scare people like they have, and maybe Eric Bieniemy can do that as he returns to offensive coordinator. 10.5 is their win total, puts them right with Baltimore and Buffalo and ahead of some of the other teams we've already talked about. I'm used to putting Kansas City around 30, 31 even as an opening power rating. I'm scared to do that even if Mahomes is healthy. I don't know whether he's going to take snaps in August. He may not, but we're going to monitor his health anyway. The early schedule isn't that daunting until we get deeper into the schedule, but I'm just lowering it just a little bit. Remember, they have a brand new DB room that they have to work on. We're going to find out about their pass rushers. We're going to see how the chemistry of the offense goes through. But I'm optimistic about the point offense. If you're looking for higher scoring games, I'm neutral on the defensive backfield, but it's going to be really put to the test at the end of the season. In fact, even if the stats look good heading into week 12, you may want to fade KC's defense and prop plays from weeks 12 to 17 against these quarterbacks, because they still may be undervalued. If KC looks like on paper that they have good stats against quarterbacks that are not these six, it may skew the stats a little bit, and you may find some value in knowing that you can still pass against Kansas City. It'll be interesting. I kind of neutral on KC. My win grid doesn't like KC as much as others. I'm kind of neutral right now. I obviously will redo the win grid before the season starts, but at the beginning of September. But right now, it likes Denver more than KC. That's where we are at the halfway point. I have a couple of questions here. The World Cup is on. Oh, they're going to watch later. Okay, well, enjoy the World Cup. And yes, please watch later. Please tell others that if you find this helpful, that's great. I'm sorry that I'm competing against the World Cup this time, but once every 4 years, big national event, I understand. Let's move on and let's go to team 3. And this is going to be a hard one for me. Actually, team 4, the Chargers will be the harder one. Here's the Raiders right now. And you could see that the experiment with Pete Carroll just didn't work. I was rooting for him. I think he's a hell of a coach, but not a real good situation last year with a roster and a draft class. Year after year, the draft class has underperformed. We've seen now, as we'll get into that on the next slide, that the draft class is finally starting to improve. But you got to build this roster up. Look at those stats. Nearly 70% allowed, 64 sacks allowed. They had one key injury to the offensive line, but it wasn't just injury. It was the fact that they had virtually no pass rush. Let's say rush attack. No rush attack because they were averaging a very low yards per carry. Ashton Genty couldn't find running holes, or he was a little bit too hyped up. Again, I don't know what his speed was coming out of college. Last in run defense, which keeps your defense on the field too long to begin with. Kubiak was masterful at Seattle as an offensive coordinator with the game plan for Sam Darnold. I think he brings a unique skill set to the Raiders that over time will be good. Just be careful with him and cautious with him and give him time. Be patient. Internal promotion for offensive coordinator. Center, they paid the center. He came from the AFC South, came from Indianapolis, I believe, the most money in the NFL. And he's an all-pro, so they've instantly upgraded at center. They'll get their left tackle back. 2 free agent signings at linebacker, instantly upgrade linebacker. So this team is a little better than they were personnel-wise, where they were from the end of last season. The good news, no primetime games. So you get that routine going for a young team with a new coach and lots to prove. That's good, no primetime games. The bad part, -13 rest differential. The youngsters are going to have to adapt on the fly, or other teams are going to get extra time to prepare from them. They're not going to look past the Raiders if they have 10 days to prepare. The late bye, I like earlier buys or middle buys for new coaches so they get that extra week to look at film, look at tape, and make adjustments. If you have a late bye, you're not making real adjustments because it's a whirlwind for a first-time head coach. Don't let anybody tell you any differently. It takes time to understand the head coach role, and things come so fast at you. You don't have time to sit back and evaluate your team. It's a little late for the Raiders to evaluate their team. And then 4 road games in a 5-game stretch won't be easy either. So the Raiders, I'm kind of bearish on their schedule, I would say. This isn't the ideal schedule for the team. A lot of draft picks by design, which I like for the Raiders. Mendoza, obviously, quarterback, the number 1 pick. They hope he works out. Will he start week 1? Will he not start week 1? We'll find out. Some decent additions. We know about the Jermard McCoy situation where one camp says he may not even play football in the NFL, and another camp says you got to steal. And really, round 4, with all the picks they made, it's not a heavy investment by any means. And if this works out, this is a real coup in an area that they definitely needed help. They got a lot of good players out of this draft. I like the center guard, Trey Zune. Mike Washington, I highlighted because he's a great complement to Ashton Genty because this guy is full of speed. He was super fast at the combine. He was fast at Arkansas. He can be a great game breaker in a rotational role or a niche role in the NFL. I think this is a good pickup because it's a good pickup for Kubiak because he schemes so well. The one issue I had is that this is most likely the 32nd and last rated wide receiver core. They picked up Naylor in free agency, who's more of a poor man's wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. Trey Tucker is considered their best receiver, and I would think there's at least 50 or 60 or 70 receivers in the NFL, maybe more, that are better than him. I'm very disappointed that the Raiders did not address wide receiver. Yes, they got Malik Benson in the 6th round, but that doesn't move the needle for me. So wide receiver, last in the league in terms of talent. Unanswered questions. Maybe we'll see some wide receiver pickups, or maybe we'll see Diggs, or maybe we'll see somebody there. But is this really going to be the wide receiver room they go to battle with week 1? That would be crazy. Why does it matter who wins the quarterback job? If it's Kirk Cousins, turnovers are going to be reduced a little bit. They're going to hit some shorter patterns in terms of the tight ends, the wide receivers. He's going to make good decisions. The accuracy is going to go up. The defense will probably be on the field less. Now, obviously, Kirk Cousins is near the end of his career, and Mendoza is hopefully at the start of a promising career. But how ready is he going to be to face Denver twice, to face Steve Spagnuolo and Kansas City, at least their front 7? how ready is he going to be to face the LA Chargers, who have a top 5 defense as well? I think sacks will spike. If you're looking for props again, I'm not going to put it in writing, but I'm going to tell you right now that certain books will give you number of sacks in a game and number of sacks by a team. And depending on if Cousins starts or if Mendoza starts, that's going to dictate whether or not I go higher or lower for number of sacks. So you can go off the radar, off the beaten path, and take advantage of who wins the quarterback job week 1. And I need to see more out of running back Genty, and no excuses because he has the right head coach in place to make this work. They've upgraded a little bit and they're healthier a little bit on the offensive line. Obviously, wide receiver is still a problem, but I'd like to see Genty make a positive step with his yards per carry this year. Same goal team and me, in my opinion, competing and showing progress by year's end. The record is not the important thing. It's whether or not this is a better team and you have a good handle on your roster by the end of the year. That's all that counts. Their win total has been bet up because they had a decent draft. People like Mendoza, they like Cousins, whatever the situation. Maybe McCoy contributes, although remember, he missed 2025 in college. So even if he's healthy, he's going to get burned a little bit as a cornerback who basically hasn't played since 2024. So you have to be careful about that. My power rating is like some of the other teams I've mentioned in the AFC. 20.5 is rather low. It's in the bottom 8. I'm concerned about the turnover ratio if Mendoza is the starter. Of course, you grow. Again, it's not about this year. It's about next year for the Raiders. But if we're handicapping this year, I would be concerned about the turnover ratio. Fixing every issue on defense takes time. They have more veterans at linebacker. That's great. They still have to grow their pass rush. It's not there. They need time in the secondary. So it's not going to be perfect this year. And as it is for rebuilding teams, special team issues tend to take longer. They get ignored. You don't have enough quality players on the roster to also field a good special teams unit. And Las Vegas was not one of the best special teams units last year. I would expect that at best it's going to be league average this year. So there's still some problems with Las Vegas, but the hope is by the end of the year, they will be more competitive. Okay, finally, it's the Chargers. The issue they had last year is they lost both offensive tackles, one before the season and one was in and out of the lineup and finally out of the lineup by the time midseason came. And these are 2 studs at left tackle and right tackle. Missing them caused Herbert to be sacked an amazing 60 times. That's a lot for a Jim Harbaugh coach team, and for a professional like Herbert to be sacked like that. Top 5 pass defense again, kept them in games. They went over the win total. And I've been very, as you know, if you follow me the last 2 years, I've been very bullish on the Chargers because they had a top 3 draft and a top 5 draft the last 2 drafts. Other people didn't think so, but I did. And you look at that draft class from last year and 2024, it really delivered. So what's going to happen this year is now the important thing. And the new DC is young. The old DC got a head coaching job, so obviously they had to make a change. And McDaniel comes over from Miami, quite an innovator at Miami. Mixed reviews on his ability to be the head coach guy, but he shows a lot of promise as a coordinator and as a playmaker. He came from the San Francisco Shanahan coaching tree there, and now he's here working with Harbaugh, and we're going to see how this develops. It's going to be very interesting. Herbert's already learning new things from him, and we're going to see how this plays out if they become more dynamic. Free agency, they added a couple of interior offensive linemen, which was essential. Obviously, they're going to get back their left tackle and right tackle from injury. They already had Gadsden from last year, who I raved about as a rookie coming in. I thought he was a steal in the 5th round. But they've added 2 more tight ends with a lot of talent, established veteran tight ends. All of a sudden, this is one of the top tight end units in the league. They can block, all of them. They can catch, all of them. They can do a lot of things. They also added an extra running back. I think Hampton is a 1,200-yard running back if he stays healthy. As a rookie, he didn't. So I'm glad they added an extra running back. Very good free agency for the Chargers. Now the tough spot. 10th toughest schedule. Okay, that's one thing. But the NFL really, you think 2025 was bad when they gave them unreasonable setups against Denver and Kansas City? 3 of the 4 games were unfair, slanted toward their rivals. Now this year, they have at least 2 games. They're going to go back to cold weather week 18 against Denver. They're going to play on a short week against Kansas City. Kansas City's going to be rested. They're going to have the rest advantage. And teams with a minus 15 or greater rest differential do not tend to do well because the NFL, as we know, it's a very physical game. And for the Chargers, a minus 24 rest differential, that's unheard of. San Francisco had one close to that a couple of years ago, I believe. Didn't have a good season. That's just unfair. I firmly believe that the most well-rounded roster in the AFC West is right here with the Chargers. But I can't, and this is going to be hard with a minus 24 rest differential. This draft was different for the Chargers. It was a little bit above average. It was not top 5. It was not top 3. And it was very narrow in focus. They're getting their left tackle and their right tackle back. They added 2 interior offensive linemen that can start from free agency. Now they drafted 4 more offensive linemen and an undrafted free agent rated offensive lineman as well. So essentially, I think they have 5 guys who could play that they drafted in the offensive line. And the 2 people I've highlighted, Nick Barnett, a run stopper out of South Carolina, and a polished edge rusher. He's already 25, 26 years old, Messidor from the SEC. The offensive line and the defensive line, this is where Jim Harbaugh wants to make sure that his team is rooted in making sure that you take care of your front 4 and your front 5. And I think they've done that. They didn't add very much else, so they still have some holes and other that I would have liked to see filled. Brennan Thompson is another speedster, somebody who might help on the return unit or might be put out. With McDaniel here, I feel more comfortable that maybe they develop some niche plays for him and they get him out in space on a wheel route or something like that. They're going to try to use this guy because McDaniel is creative. So that's going to be interesting. Overall, slightly above average draft, focusing on the trenches. Unanswered questions. Will the new scheme, McDaniel, definitely a new scheme, and better health, Chargers were one of 2 teams, them and San Francisco, with terrible health last year. Will that mean fewer sacks allowed? You cut that 60 to 35, 38, you get to the league average. If you cut that by 20 sacks, I think the Chargers are dangerous, even with that tricky schedule. But then what's the ceiling? Because there are going to be times they're not going to be at optimum. For modelers, this is a dilemma. The NFL has created a dilemma with a minus 24 rest differential. If you model and you say, wow, the Chargers look good, but they're not going to be able to play at their peak week after week with this minus 24 rest differential. Sometimes they're rested 7 days, but their opponent has 14 days. Sometimes they come off short rest, short weeks, and so on. Unfortunately, it's a balance between situational handicapping and model handicapping, and where you do matchup analysis like I do, and you have to marry the 2. And that's our challenges year after year, week after week. The team's goal is clear: win a playoff game. That's been, Justin Herbert's career has no playoff wins, and that's really it doesn't look good on the resume, let's put it that way. For me, I have smaller goals because I hate that rest differential, and I'm a little bit bearish on them, even though I love the talent. First, let's make the playoffs and then hopefully win. I don't think it's a done deal with how powerful the AFC is. We talked about Cincinnati, we talked about Indy, Houston, and so on, Jacksonville even. We talked about New England, Buffalo still being strong, Kansas City rebounding. There's only 7 playoff teams. The Chargers first have to make sure they're one of them. 10.5 is the win total, slanted a little bit under. Power rating is 28. Again, that might seem a little bit low. I think they can be a little bit more above that, but I want to see how McDaniel's scheme works first. What's the chemistry going to be? automatically you have a wizard at offensive coordinator. You have a guy who's really elevated teams his first 3-4 years with the team in Jim Harbaugh. But how is that chemistry going to work? That's what I'm interested in. It's a real dilemma balancing metrics and schedule. I've talked about that. I love the roster, but according to my win grid and my first pass through at this, I might be, for the first time in 3 years, a little bit bearish and a little bit under. I'm going to see how this goes, see if I notice any cracks or any surprisingly strong things when they put the roster together in August, September. I'm actually going to be looking at linebacker too. That's an underdeveloped area for the Chargers, and I'd like to see that develop a little more. So that's it. That's the whole thing that I have in terms of where we are with the AFC. I've covered all 16 teams. I've given you the PowerPoint information. If you want to go back, look at it. If you want to take some notes, if you want to agree, great. If you want to disagree, that's great too. You see some things that you think are more important or that you'd like to highlight. That's the purpose of this exercise, to get the thought processes going. So on Thursday, I'm back, and I'm excited to be back to talk about the NFC on Thursday. We're talking about Dallas, Washington, the New York Giants, and Philadelphia. A very contentious, and I think a much, much, much improved NFC East. So tell others, subscribe. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and I will see you back same time, noon West Coast time on Thursday with the NFC East. Bye.